Hey, what is going on, guys? DK. Back at you with another video here to bring in the 11-game NBA main slate on Friday, TGIF. If you guys are new to the channel, welcome. My name is DK. I make daily videos and live stream for NBA and NFL slates on Draftkings. Also make videos for NBA Top Shot, NFL All Day. I just dropped a video opening up Week 17 and a Week 18 NFL All Day pack. So if that's something that you guys are interested in, go ahead and check out that video. Got some pretty nice polls there. If you are unable to watch the YouTube videos, also upload an Apple Podcast. Link is in the description below. Premium content offered on patreon.com. NFL covering the playoffs, main and showdown slate, and then NBA cover the main and the late showdown slate as well. I like to thank the sponsor of the first half of the video, that is Prize Picks. Guys, if you're not familiar with Prize Picks, it is a player prop site. So there's a few different ways you can play taking over-under and straight up points, straight up rebounds, assists, three-pointers made. You can also take over-unders on fantasy points. You can mix and match sports. So you can play some from NBA, some from NFL. They basically have every single sport you can think of. And you pick 2 to 5 of these player props, and you can win up to 10x your money. So if you guys want to try out Prize Picks, you can sign up and use my code DKDFS. It's DKDFS, all one word. You get a 100% match up to $100. All right, guys. So before we get into players and the prices, let's take a look back lineup here from tonight. So tonight, yeah, really the blowout in the Knicks game really hurt. Randall not coming back in. The Knicks rode with the second unit, but I mean, what can you do? Pacers value for me went with Duarte and Goga. They both smashed. I originally had Kuminga in here, but since I had Randall, huge letdown. I pivoted from Kuminga to Brissett. Didn't really work out. Brissett shot like 0 of 7. I stuck with Klay Thompson just because I knew he'd be low-owned, right? I knew I had to give myself a chance with some of these low-owned guys. Didn't really work out. JaVale McGee, massive chalk, and they closed the BM. Like, this guy has caused me the most amount of pain this year, all right? I'm sure if you guys remember that stretch when DeAndre Ayton was first out, and I played McGee every time, and every game he got in foul trouble, right? Every single game. Like 4 or 5, maybe even 6 straight slates had happened, and I finally faded him. And the one game he stayed out of, he won for 50 fantasy points. It's just like, this guy has caused me an immense amount of pain. But yeah, that's it for the look back, guys. This is currently the winning lineup right now in high stakes. It is Luka, it's Booker, Ingram, Kuminga, who is 100% owned, JaVale McGee, Paul, Craig, and Goga. And if you played Kuminga, well, right now you're getting Steve Kerr, right? He is, again, guys, he is Greg Popovich level. Him, Steve Nash, Greg Popovich. I'm telling you, you literally just can't trust the rotations outside of the main guys. You can't. But yeah, McGee was the massive chalk, no surprise. Only one person faded him here. Chris Paul, Torrey Craig, and Goga. Okay, so let's talk about, let's get into Friday slate, guys. We'll start off the Oklahoma City Thunder. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 8.5K. A pretty good matchup here. Had a letdown game last game. Shot 5 of 21, so not super worried. Again, the usage was there. Just a bad shooting game. So I think the ownership will be relatively low in a big slate. Josh Giddey, 6'9". Again, doesn't really stand out. He definitely takes a back seat to Shai. Dort's more of a secondary play for me. You have Robinson Earl at center only, which is kind of hard to get to. Basie at 4-3. Again, he can have some upside, but his minutes are up and down. So it's really hard to feel good about any of these Thunder guys. Who also kind of controlling his backs. There's basically a fully healthy team. On the Charlotte side, so Terry Rozier, we got to start here. I mean, this guy's just playing out of his mind recently. Even with like a fully healthy team, is it the point where it's like is this Terry Rozier's team again? I don't know, but he's just been dominating the usage. Even with LaMelo there. Again, Oklahoma City's not good at the defensive end, so I have some interest in Rozier. It feels like you're paying a premium for him, but again, right now, with how many minutes he's playing, he's playing like 40 minutes a game. I think he's been playing both formats. LaMelo at 8'6", not going to play as many minutes, but will be super productive when he's on the court. He had a triple-double last game, so have some interest in both the guards here for Charlotte. We do have Kelly Oubre back, which makes like Bridges and Hayward's minutes a little bit riskier, so not super interested in either of them. And then PJ Washington is questionable. If he can't go, we probably see more minutes for Mason Plumlee. 27, 28, and 28 over the last 3 games. Now, he hasn't done a ton with them, but he's only 4.2K, so I think he's a fair value play. Lakers and Magic, so LeBron James 11-4. Again, it's a good matchup here. He's going to play close to 40 minutes. The price is not super, super cheap. And the position just changes all the time for LeBron. It was center a couple states ago. Then it was point guard and small forward. Now it's only small forward. Like, can DraftKings make up their mind with LeBron? Westbrook at 9K, I'm still not touching that. The secondary options here for the Lakers, it's just, they're all tournament plays. Like, THT had a good game last game, but they're going to go the hot hand situation. I will mention, if Dwight Howard starts, I think he's a fair value. Like, the Magic are a bigger front court, right, with, like, Mo Bamba, with Robin Lopez, Carter, if he plays. So, yeah, I think Dwight is viable if he starts. Moving on to the Magic side, as I mentioned, Wendell Carter Jr., he is on the probable side, actually. So he is expected to be back. So we'll see what he does with the starting lineup. Mo Bamba, I'm sure you guys saw what happened last game. Just a crazy game. He shot, I think he had 7 or 8 threes in the first half. Him and Embiid were just going back and forth. A 50 bomb from Mo Bamba, kind of just out of nowhere. Now, this guy does have that upside, right? He can, break a slate. Now, I think the ownership will be up after the last game. And with Carter Jr. coming back, it does make him not look as good. Cole Anthony's been pretty disappointing of late, but I think we had around 30 minutes from him in a good matchup, a guy that can kind of contribute in a lot of different ways. And then Jalen Suggs finally moved in the starting lineup. He played 34 minutes. And Suggs has been playing better of late. So kind of like Jalen Suggs for value at that price. Don't think I get to anyone else on the Magic side. Clippers and 76ers. We got to keep an eye on Morris and Batum. They're both questionable. If they're out, this is going to be a thin roster. Like last game, they started Reggie, Coffee, Ibaka, and Zubac. Zubac went crazy last game. Went for 53 fantasy points. Now he's going up against Joel Embiid, so not really a good matchup there. Reggie Jackson had a really big game too. Both those guys are out. He'll probably be the highest usage guy. Amir Coffey has been playing better of late, and he's been getting some pretty significant minutes. I think he's a fair play in the mid-range. Again, I mentioned Terrence Mann starting. He didn't have the best game. He played 39 minutes. So that's like, if he starts again and these two guys are out, I think he's a pretty safe play. We saw Kennard come off the bench in his first game back in a little bit. Only played 27 minutes. So keep an eye to see if there's any limitations there. Bledsoe saw 25 minutes. Again, I think I'd rather go to Mann to similar price point. I mentioned they started Ibaka. He only played 14 minutes, though. So, like, his minutes, even when he's been starting games at times, are just not secure. And then if you think Zubac gets in foul trouble, which I think is definitely possible, you can consider a guy like Isaiah Hartenstein, who's a good point per minute guy. And again, Embiid is good at drawing fouls. On the Philadelphia side, Joel Embiid also just had a massive game, right? Him and Mo Bamba just went back and forth. Well, they're 77 in basically 3 quarters. And I'm sure you saw what Nikola Jokic just did to this Clippers front court, right? But I will say, but, when I play Nikola Jokic, same exact matchup. Remember that, guys? Remember the game was played in the 1970s? It was like 40-28 at half. I'm sure I had Jokic at low ownership there. Same exact matchup. Almost 100 fantasy points. Tobias Harris is 6.9K. He's going to play big minutes. His usage has been not as good recently. I think he's fine. Max, you should play big minutes, but seems priced about right. Now, Seth Curry's questionable. If he can't go, keep an eye on the starting lineup. Like, they started Charlie Brown, who, again, can we talk about this profile picture for him? Someone mentioned in my stream, I'm just like, yeah, let's just say if I was him, I would not be too pleased to have this as my profile picture. If Seth Curry's out, I think Furkan Korkmaz could move in the starting lineup, and he would be a decent value play. A guy that we've seen some upset games from him, right? A guy that is kind of score independent, but I would say this season he's been doing more of a playmaking role. So like we've seen him, do better with filling up the stat sheet this year. All right, Portland and Boston. So my boy, Yusuf Nurkic, is just playing really, really well. He got in massive foul trouble last game against Miami. Still in for 43 fantasy points. The game before that, a 60 bomb. So Nurkic is just playing so well, and just nothing makes me happier than see the Bosnian Beast just smash. If he stays out of foul trouble, he's going to play 35 minutes. So I think Nurkic looks pretty good at that price point once again. Now, the two guards where it gets tricky. I think I lean CJ over Simons. Played 33 minutes last game, had a decent game. But, Simons still had a really good game with CJ back. He's just playing extremely well. So I'm not sure what to do with these Portland guards. Little's questionable if he can't go. Robert Covington probably plays like 40 minutes. But the price point doesn't stand out there. And then, I'll be curious to see who they start if Little's out. Do they move Ben McLemore in the starting lineup and go a little bit smaller? If that's the case, like he would be playable value. But yeah, so we'll keep it on the starting lineup there. On the Boston side, so Marcus Smart is currently questionable. Yes, I'm going to continue to bring it up, guys, because just look at these Dennis Schroeder games. 37, 47, 47. Again, I play him at low ownership. 5. So yeah, so you're going to ask me, oh, DK, every time you're going to bring up Schroeder. Yeah, the answer is yes. I'm going to bring it up every time until he has an off game. So if he continues to go for 50, I'm going to say I'm very happy for all those that played him and for Dennis Schroeder. Very, very happy. But yeah, so if Smart's out, you can consider Schroeder. The prices come up, but he's just playing 40 minutes a game. Tatum and Brown at 9.7 and 8.7K respectively. It's a really good matchup here. The issue is that, trying to nail down who's going to have the big night is a little bit trickier. So I think both are in play for me. Rob Williams is back, so it kind of takes like the bigs out of play. And Rob Williams himself just seems priced about right. So not much else here on the Boston side. And guys, for the I would like to thank the sponsor of the second half of this video. That is Roast Umber. So, guys, coffee company, it is amazing. And I feel like, again, if you play DFS, you got to stay caffeinated, right? You got to be up all night late, making late swaps, tilting. But yeah, try it out, guys. Discount code is DKDFS for 20% off. They have coffee, they have decaf, they have the Guatemala Nitro cold brew, which is my personal favorite. And again, let me tell you, great stuff. So if you're a big coffee fan, try it out, guys. You will not be disappointed. And again, use my code down below for 20% off. Would greatly appreciate that. Okay, but back to the breakdown here. So Miami and Atlanta. On the Miami side, so again, I would appreciate if I don't have a player that gets ejected tomorrow. That would be nice because I had Jimmy Butler last slate and he got ejected. But, it's still a really good matchup here. And Atlanta's been awful defensively, so I still like Jimmy there at the top. Bam in a buyout, 7-5. Still only played 32 minutes. Now, he did have a really good game for 3 blocks and 5 steals, though. So, kind of an outlier performance. I think he's playable. But we'll feel a little bit better if the minutes were, 35, 36, 37 for Bam, right? But again, still in play because of the matchup. The GOAT, unfortunately, out of the rotation, which is just an idiotic move there by Miami. But again, that's my take. Gabe Vincent, 4.8K. So played 37 minutes. Assuming he starts again, I think he does. I think he makes a pretty good value play. Now, obviously, he got a boost with Jimmy getting ejected, but I still think the minutes will be relatively high there. Max Struss and Duncan Robinson are basically, again, the same player for me. Max Struss got hot. Last game went for almost 30 fantasy points. Duncan Robinson really been struggling. Also, he was like power forward, I think, last slate. Now he's back to shooting guard. The downside is, again, they're very scoring dependent. You and Martin have a pretty good game. Played 32 minutes. Again, though, that was with Jimmy ejected. So, I don't know. I think he goes back to 20-ish minutes if Jimmy does not get ejected this game. Moving on to Atlanta. So, Trae Young, 10-3. Again, Miami known for, being a good defensive team, but Trae can go for a big game, any game, like we saw last game against Minnesota. So, Trae definitely in play here for tournaments. Capella at some point is questionable. If he can't go, Okongwu, John Collins definitely get a boost. Now, we saw Okongwu have a really good game. Last game went for 40 fantasy points. So, if he starts again, he is playable. The only thing I will say is there's just a chance they could always troll. They can dust off Gorgie Jang and play in minutes, right? So, you always got to factor that in. And then John Collins would play a lot more at the 5 as well. And that would boost his upside and floor. As far as the secondary plays here go for Atlanta, DeAndre Hunter's price has now come up to 4.8K. I still think he's playable because he's been playing really well and been playing big minutes, but no longer like a smash play there. Gallinari at 4.3 is questionable if he can't go. Again, probably maybe a couple extra minutes for Hunter, Herder. But yeah, that's it for the Hawks. Moving on to Toronto and Washington. So Gary Trent Jr. once again questionable. If he can't go, again, they're basically going to run like a 6-man rotation here. So Siakam, Van Fleet should play 43, 44 minutes each. I think they're both solid options. OG and Scotty Barnes, if they stay out of foul trouble, probably play close to 40 minutes. They're fair plays in the mid-range. And then Achua started last game, played 33 minutes. Did not have the best game, but assuming he starts again, I think he's a relatively safe value. We saw Chris Boucher play big minutes off the bench. We know he's a good point per minute guy. So I think he's still in play for me for tournaments. And yeah, that is it for Toronto. If Trent is in, then it just makes the minutes a little bit riskier for those bigs in Achua and in Boucher. On the Washington side, not much. Brad Beal's 8-7. I mean, he had a good game last game, but the floor is way lower on him when he's not playing the point. Kuzma, 8K, finally came back down to earth, 25 fancy points. Thank you. That's all I'm going to say about that. The centers right now, they're running a three-headed monster here with Montrez, Gafford, and Thomas Bryant, so hard to feel good about any of them. If I had to take a shot at one, it would be Harrell, who's played the most recently, been getting like low 20s minutes. And we know Montrez is a good point per minute guy. So, yeah, that is it for Washington. Chicago and Milwaukee, still no Levine, still no Alonzo Ball. So this is me, DeRozan, and Vooch kind of running the show here. Both should play big minutes if the game stays competitive. So I like both the main Bulls here in Vooch and in DeRozan. Again, they're going to play huge minutes. Coby White at 6.4K. Probably starts and plays mid-30s minutes. We do have a Caruso back. We have Ayo who's been playing a little bit better of late. So I don't think he's like a plug-and-play, but a solid option in the mid-range. Ayo, again, continues to play well. 39 minutes, went for 38 fancy points. I still, again, don't know what to make of it. He's playable. Again, he's been playing really well last 3 games. And then Caruso, 4-6, and they kind of eased him back and they played him 23 minutes. Keep an eye on the news. If there's no limitations here in this one, then I think he's a fair value play that probably would push for about 30 minutes. On the Milwaukee side, basically a fully healthy team. Giannis, Middleton, Drew, Portis, all playable. I think Giannis, the guy that stands out the most to me at the top. Probably get mid-30s minutes in competitive game. So he looks decent. Middleton, Drew don't really stand out to me. I think Bobby Portis would be the other guy I would consider at 6-7. I think we get low 30s minutes from him. He's been pretty consistent of late. So I think it's Giannis, it's Portis. Not really looking to the value here for the Bucks. Brooklyn and San Antonio. So still no Kevin Durant. Again, my best ball team is just, I don't know if I mentioned this last video, but John Morant missed about a month. Devin Booker missed a month. I have Kevin Durant, who's out 4 to 6 weeks, and now Domantas Sabonis. And then to add insult to injury, I had the worst possible luck with COVID. I had multiple weeks where I was taking zeros in spots. I just couldn't field a roster. All my guys had COVID. So just like so tilting because I still had a chance. And then the Sabonis injury just basically, you know, kind of the nail in the coffin for me in that, which is frustrating. But yeah, back to Harden and Irving. So I do prefer the price on Irving to Harden. You know, both are going to play similar minutes, and Kyrie is like $2,000 cheaper. So I prefer Kyrie to Harden. Now, Harden's still playable, but yeah, Kyrie easier to get to. As far as the bigs go, keep an eye on Claxton. He's currently questionable. If he's back, going to make the minutes riskier for Aldridge and Sharp, and I probably would stay away from them if Claxton plays. If Claxton's out, it's basically going to be a split with Aldridge and Sharp. You would think, right? You saw to factor in who his coaches, right? But yeah, Aldridge had a really good game last game, went for 32 minutes, 43 fancy points. We know both him and Sharp are good point per minute guys. So I think both are in play for me with those two centers. Probably not going to get to anyone else, though. Like Kessler Edwards has been getting some pretty decent minutes, but he's been low usage. That's probably it for Brooklyn. On the San Antonio side, I mean, DeJounte Murray, he's got to be an all-star, right? He actually has to be. He's been playing so well. Triple-double last game. I like him again here. This game should be played at a fast pace, and we're probably get mid-30s minutes. You know, the usage goes down a little bit with Derrick White in the lineup, but still like DeJounte Murray for tournaments. Pirtle at 6'8", feels priced about right. Derrick White at 6K, I think is a fair play in the mid-range. We probably get low 30s minutes from him if this game stays competitive. Secondary options like Keldon's fine at 5'2". Again, should play around 30 minutes and get you mid-20s fancy points if he stays out of foul trouble. Memphis and Denver. So Ja Goat went absolutely off last game. 67 fancy points. Once again, they're shorthanded. So sure, Denver, not known for being like a great matchup, but we should see big minutes from Ja. So I think he looks really good. Triple J at 6'3", had a solid game last game, won for almost 50 fancy points. We know he does have that type of upside, so he's viable for tournaments. Clark should see like mid-20s minutes off the bench. I think he's a fair play, a guy that is a good point per minute guy. Steven Adams at 4'7". Again, him and Clark kind of splitting the center minutes, so they're both playable. I think it's a little bit easier to get to Clark, though, because he has the power forward eligibility. The value, so does any organization hate a player more than the Grizzlies hate D'Anthony Melton? Because they just refuse to give this guy minutes no matter what. He was the massive chalk last slate, and they only played him 17 minutes. So this is going to be the slate, right? Where no one plays him because you let everyone down last slate, and he's going to go off. The thing with D'Anthony Melton is he's a great point per minute guy. So like if he plays well, like he can smash, right? Like you don't have to go back too far to see some of these games. I just realized in Draftkings you can go back like really far now, almost the beginning. I think to the beginning of the season. But yeah, I mean he can go for like 30 plus if he plays well. So Is he going to troll us tomorrow? I think it might happen. Now, Conchar, I think, is easier to get to, assuming he starts. Played 32 minutes last game. So I think he's a pretty safe value play. We saw Zyre Williams play some pretty big minutes as well in the starting lineup. Again, not the best point per any guy, but is also really, really cheap there at 3.2. On the Denver side, so Nikola Jokic, 12-6. Again, he's going to play big minutes. Should play mid-30s minutes. Almost went for 100 fancy points last game. So, yes, I played him like this whole stretch where he kept getting in foul trouble. The game was random blowouts. Faded here, 72. And faded here where he actually almost went for 100 fancy points. So, very happy for Jokic and all those that played in the last couple slates. But yeah, 12.6K. I think he's one of the better spend ups, right? Just the type of ceiling that he brings. Secondary options, Gordon and Barton don't stand out to me. Can we just talk about this Monte Morris game? Just completely out of nowhere, right? He's been playing 25, 30 minutes, getting like 15, 25 fancy points. Just all of a sudden, 45 minutes and 47 fantasy points. Like, excuse me? So, kind of feels like a chase if you go there. Campazzo was basically out of the rotation last game. Bones HYLAND at 4K has been getting, decent minutes, but last game was limited to 15. So that's a little bit concerning. We also have Austin Rivers back. Jeff Green, I hate playing this guy because he's not a high usage guy at all and has a low floor, but we probably see, 25 to 30 minutes from him in a competitive game. All right, Detroit and Utah. So Cade Cunningham has caused me just insane amount of pain last game. Played him at low ownership on the late slate and fouled out in 21 minutes. Utah, again, is not necessarily the best matchup. So it's no one that really stands out for me on the Detroit side with Cade, with Bay. We do have Kelly Olynyk back, and he is a really good point per guy. Played 22 minutes, so I can see taking a shot on him. But the issue is Detroit's spreading out the rotation. Keep an eye on Killian Hayes. We saw Corey Joseph start last game. He had a really good game in 37 minutes. I will just say, though, again, you have to factor in that Cade Cunningham was in foul trouble that game. So I think the usage does go down for Joseph if Cade can stay out of foul trouble. On the Utah side, so no Mitchell, no Whiteside. We do have Rudy Gay back. Gobert at 8-9 should play 35-plus minutes. I think he's got a pretty high floor. Like the matchup as long as the game stays competitive. But Bogdanovic also has a ceiling, right? The floor is low, though. He can't hit his shots, right? He's pretty score independent. As far as the guards go, Conley Clarkson once again look good. Again, only thing you get to factor in is the potential for a blowout against an awful Detroit Pistons team. But I think both guards look pretty safe because I'm expecting low 30s minutes for both. And both should get a pretty big usage bump there without Mitchell. Royce O'Neal also should see some pretty significant minutes. He's not that good of a point per guy, though. Rudy Gay being back does, I think, affect Royce a bit. It affects Ingles. Bogdanovic missed a little bit. I think Rudy Gay himself should play around 20 minutes and is a fair value play at that price. And once again, I'm interested in Ingles at 4-2 that should start and play around 30 minutes. So, yeah, good amount to like here on the Utah side. And finally, guys, Houston, Golden State. So, obviously, some blowout risk here. But if they're going to keep the game competitive, it's going to be Christian Wood and it's going to be Kevin Porter Jr. I think both make for pretty good tournament plays. Christian Wood, last 4 games, 45, 43, 52, and 41 fantasy points. And Kevin Porter Jr., again, if he does not get ejected, he does have upside. We saw 2 40 fantasy point games from him in the last 3. So I think the 2 main guys there for Houston look good in tournaments. The rest, you can take shots here and there if you're playing large field tournaments. Jayshawn Tate, the issue is the minutes. He's not playing big minutes. Eric Gordon, Jalen Green, these are 2 guys that, the minutes should be there for them, but they're kind of score independent. So neither really stand out to me. And finally, Golden State. So Klay Thompson expected to rest in this game. So start with Steph Curry, 11-1, who has had a pretty good game tonight. Pacers surprisingly keeping the game close. So again, with Steph Curry, as I always say, he's going to fail more often than he comes through for you. But the times he comes through, you'll probably get him a low ownership, and he could win you some big money. So if the game can stay competitive, sure, I could see a big Steph Curry game. Wiggins' price is not standing out to me. I would assume one of Poole or Gary Payton move in the starting line for Klay Thompson. Whoever starts probably feel a little bit better there. KEVON Looney, without Draymond Green, does get a boost. He also had a pretty big game tonight, or is on pace to have a big game. So I think he's viable there. Kuminga, I want to see if he ended up checking back in because he only played 15 minutes in the 4th quarter. Again, that's just Steve Kerr for you, right? You never know with that guy. And the secondary options, sure, you can take some shots in tournaments, but you don't know what's going to happen in their rotation. So yeah, guys, that's going to do it for the video. If you haven't enjoyed the content, just make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Really appreciate all you guys' support, guys. Thanks again. Have a great one, and I'll see you all tomorrow. I will be doing a YouTube live stream, so If you guys want to check that out, I will be going live tomorrow on my YouTube channel.